So after learning about the right to equality from articles 14 to 18, so let us proceed with the another fundamental right called right to freedom. See, the word freedom itself says that this right is going to give us in various forms certain provisions. So right to freedom is covered under articles 19 to 22. So from 19th article to 22nd article, the right to freedom is covered, and this right to freedom is cluster of six essential freedoms. So constitution recognizes that for a human being, six basic freedoms are necessary, and then these six basic freedoms are protected by constitution in articles 19 and 19 to 22. So let us study what is this article 19. So article 19 of the constitution, it guarantees six basic freedoms. So under article 19, six basic freedoms are guaranteed, and they are as follows. So freedom of speech and expression. So anybody in this country has the freedom of speech. That means speaking about something else or speaking about anything. And expression. Through the speech, they try to express their things. So freedom of speech and expression is covered under the first basic freedom of Article 19. Freedom to assemble peacefully without arms. So anybody in this country can assemble peacefully. So without having any weapons or harmful things, anybody in this country can assemble peacefully. So this is a basic freedom. Assembling together is a freedom given. Also, freedom to form associations and unions. So a group of people can come together and they can form a union or group. So until and unless it is not harmful, anybody in this country can form a group or union. And freedom to move freely throughout India. So there is no restriction for all the citizens of this country in moving from one place to other place in the country. So they can travel throughout India without any restriction. And freedom to reside and settle in any part of India. That means people of India can go and settle in any state or any village in any part of India. So there is no restriction. They have the freedom to go and settle there. Now they can go to any part of India and they can find some job there, they can settle there. And also freedom to practice any profession, trade or business. That means, so legally if something is valid, then we can practice any profession, that means job. So anything which is legally accepted, such kind of jobs can be practiced, and such kind of business or trade can also be done. And there is no specific provision for constitution guaranteeing freedom of press. So this you might have heard, this you might be hearing very regularly in the TV channels and all, freedom of press and all. Freedom of press means the media which covers the print media as well as like television media, so like newspapers and not news channels or the TV channels. So they also had called freedom of press. So but this freedom of press is not given under the individual freedoms, individual basic freedoms. So here this individual basic freedom is in a wider perspective of Article 19. It is, so in understanding the right to freedom or the right to freedom, so the constitution, it restricts the state from enacting laws which could curtail these freedoms. So I have said that there are six basic freedoms, right? Right to freedom of speech, expression, and all such things. So in the constitution will try to protect the citizens from the government from prohibiting these or from making laws which could stop these freedoms. If the governments from central or state, if they try to make laws through which, if these six basic freedoms will be restricted, at that time constitution will come for protection through this right. And so at the same time, it does not mean that the government cannot make laws for public good or for protection of interests of trade and profession. See, at the cost of protection of people and the trade, the government can still make laws. That doesn't mean that the government should not make any laws which could stop this freedom. See, we can go, and I'll say through an example later. So on one side, the constitution will protect the citizens from governments in making laws that could restrict these freedoms. On the other side, the constitution also allows the government to frame certain rules so that it can protect the people. So, on one side, it allows the government not to frame any laws or not to make laws that could restrict these freedoms. On the same side, the constitution will also enable the governments to make laws which could protect citizens. See, any law is made, that doesn't mean that it is restricting that. Suppose you take doing criminal activity. So, criminal activities, you cannot claim that it is my freedom and I can go and kill anybody. And here the government is allowed to make laws, and it doesn't come under your freedom. So for example, if you take, the state can make laws to prescribe certain minimum educational, technical and other qualifications. So in for certain kind of jobs or for entry into certain skillful jobs, the government will prescribe certain qualification. See, the government prescribing a qualification is not against their freedom. Okay, so I cannot go and ask for a job without any proper technical skill. So there a prescribed skill will be asked by government. So that doesn't mean that it is restricting the freedom of the person there. So sometimes it has to, the government, that is why I said no, the constitution works both ways. This article will work both ways, like it allows people to have freedom. At the same time, it allows government to frame laws for the protection of people. And suppose if somebody is very problematic and if he is trying to go to another place, so then his freedom will be restricted, because in at the interest of larger public, his freedom may be restricted. And for example, one cannot displace tribal communities and settle in their territory. So tribal areas, you can see in the India map in the slide. So those are the states where the tribal population is distributed very widely. So even in Andhra, many areas. So because to protect the indigeneity, that means to protect their way of living, their cultures and other things, the constitution is guaranteeing certain rights to them, like the tribal, you cannot go and make tribal people to vacate an area and to occupy that area and such things. So here tribal communities cannot be displaced easily. And also Jammu and Kashmir was having certain differences with this article, like it was having certain other like in Jammu and Kashmir separate constitution works and all, but now after removal of article 370, then Jammu and Kashmir was also, it also became a part of India, and it works similar like other states of India. So this is about the article. So till now we have studied about article 19, what are its basic freedoms under article 19, and now like how the constitution will ensure the 6 basic freedoms. So these all we have studied. So now let us study what are the limitations for this article, because it deals primarily with freedom of citizens. There will be definitely some restrictions or some limitations on this article. So during what situations there will be limitations or restrictions? Emergency or national emergency. So national emergency is a condition where the security of the country will be under threat. In these circumstances, the Article 19 can be suspended completely. So the people's movement of freedom, their freedom of speech and expression, many things will be completely removed or completely restricted during national emergency in the interest of the nation. Also, it is not an absolute right. So what do you mean by absolute right? That means it cannot be implemented with complete without any limitations. It is not absolute, means it has some restrictions, like how when the security of the state and national interest being of paramount interest, so regional restrictions could be imposed. See, once a right is given by constitution and limitations are set for that, then that means that it is not an absolute right. So it is not you cannot implement this right, or the constitution cannot allow this right to be completely implemented, because in the interest of the nation's security or country's security, sometimes reasonably some restrictions could be imposed. Reasonable restrictions means, like, to a level where the people cannot be suffering with that kind of restriction. So reasonably some restriction can be implemented. And the laws made by parliament also restricts or also sets the limitations for this six basic freedoms. For example, Essential Services Maintenance Act. So there is two acts, namely, which was made by parliament, like Essential Services Maintenance Act, called ESMA, famously called ESMA Act, and Preventive Detention. These two acts will actually restrict the freedom of right to freedom. Like how ESMA Act, when suppose, if you take in the common interest of people, suppose if all doctors go on a strike suddenly, and what will happen, all the patients in the hospital and all will suffer a lot. So in the interest of such people, majority people, sometimes the government uses ESMA Act and prohibits certain groups which are regularly useful to people to go for strikes and other such things. So as SMAC, now, for example, I'm saying, like, transport or health services, if they suddenly go on a strike, and it will be a big disadvantage or big inconvenience to people, especially doctors and all. If they go, many patients and all will be, their lives will be under problem. So governments will use ESMA Act, and they will restrict their right to freedom of certain things. Also, like preventive detention. So if any dharnas or big situations are not under control in any area, so what government police will do, they will try to prevent certain people to enter into that area, and not through Preventive Detention Act. So they will try to restrict people's movement there, or certain group of people or certain important people, and they will try to take the situations under control. So through Preventive Detention and ESMA Act, this would affect definitely the right to freedom, but it is essential there. Hence it is a limitation for this fundamental right. And coming to the next thing called Article 20. So Article 20 is also giving some protections to citizens. So we have finished Article 19 and we are going to Article 20 in right to freedom. So Article 20, it avoids or it protects people from having greater penalties. Suppose somebody has done some crime or mistake, he has been awarded some penalty, and that penalty, if it is more than what law is prescribing, then you cannot give that penalty, or you cannot ask that penalty or fine. And no one can be punished or prosecuted for the same offense twice. For the same crime, you cannot punish the person two times. And a person cannot be compelled to be a witness in the case where he himself is accused of his offense. Suppose a person committed a crime, and you cannot take the same person as a witness for the crime that happened. So he himself might have been involved in the crime, and you cannot take him as a witness for the crime that happened. So this is about Article 20. So till now we have seen Article 19, where it gives freedom, and Article 20, during the time of offense or a committing of a crime, how what kind of protection this article will give. And now coming to protection of life and personal liberty, and this is covered under Article 21 after 19 and 20. Now coming to Article 21. Say Article 21 will guarantee the protection of life and personal liberty. So here liberty means restricted freedom, not complete freedom. So Article 20 will guarantee everyone's life to be protected in this country, and also everybody's life will have certain freedom in this country according with law. So with the prescribed law and legal system, everybody will have protection of life as well as freedom in this, or liberty in this country. So this is with reference to law. And proceeding towards Article 22. So Article 22 will protect against arrest and detention. see why this kind. Article 22 will give certain rights to citizen called protection against arrest and detention. So because this arrest and detention is something related to some kind of law, things going against law. Suppose this article will be applicable under two circumstances. So article 22, which is protection against arrest and detention, will be operational under two circumstances. One is ordinary and the other is preventive detention. What are the ordinary circumstances under which article 22 will protect us? So in ordinary circumstances, if anybody is arrested, okay, and based on a crime situation, or based on some proofs and all, if somebody is arrested, then the person will be having certain rights. What rights he will have? So this is ordinary circumstance. So under this, suppose if somebody is arrested, that arrested person will have some rights, like to be informed about his offense. So person who is arrested must and should be informed about the offense, or what things he has done against law, and to be presented before a magistrate within 24 hours from the time of arrest. Suppose somebody is arrested, he should be informed first for what he is getting arrested. Second right he will get under article 22 is he should be presented by the police before magistrate within 24 hours of his arrest. So the police is not having any authority to keep the person more than 24 hours under arrest without the permission of magistrate. So they should take the person who is having the police who are having doubt on such a person, they should take him before the magistrate and take the magistrate permission, and they can extend the arrest for him. And also the person who is called who is generally referred, who is taken under custody for offense, he can also consult his lawyer and prepare for a defense at his trial. That means he can also appoint a lawyer for him, and he can defend himself from the allegations made on him by the police. This is ordinary circumstance. What are the another circumstance where this article 22 will come under protection? It is preventive detention. What do you mean by preventive detention? So the police, what they will do is, if there is a critical situation in a particular area, law and order problem, they may arrest certain people in advance, so that law and order problem will be handled properly. Because if few people try to provocate or they motivate certain groups or people, so there may be a chance of more violence. To avoid such violence, or to avoid such law and order problems, police will take certain people arrested in advance, and or they may be detained in advance, and such person will also get certain rights under article 22. So such persons can be detained for a period of 3 months without any inquiries and all. They can ask him to stay either inside their homes or in the custody, or sometimes with the police for a period of 3 months. And also that doesn't mean that that person has done some crime. Only by having a doubt that if that person goes out, there may be a chance of law and order problem. Only in such situations they will take him, not that he has done a crime. Also, the detention beyond 3 months can be extended only by an advisory board consisting of a judge of high court. So 3 months has finished and still the person is under detention. So they cannot keep more than 3 months in detention. So at that time, the high court judge will come into scene and try to intervene and try to extend or will remove him the detention. It will be decided. And grounds of detention have to be specified and detainee informed to these grounds. So on what basis the police are detaining a particular person should be informed to him. He also will have the right to make representation against his order. So he can also defend his preventive detention. So we have just studied about the preventive detention under Article 22, right? So this preventive detention will also, during this situation or during this circumstance also, there are certain rights for the persons who are being detained. So, but along with having certain freedom through, even though he is detained under preventive detention, the person will have certain basic freedoms. But even then, there are certain limitations on this preventive detention. So in the interest of public in the interest of public, the government sometimes may not disclose the reason for detaining a person. So if arrest of a person in very advance, if it is known to all the people, then it may cause some kind of disturbance in society. So in such circumstances, under preventive detention, whatever the freedom that person will get through Article 22 will also be limited sometimes. Also, the power of Parliament, okay, which is the legislative body, it can also specify the maximum period to which a person can be detained. So we have just now discussed that 3 months is the maximum limit. Later, a high court judge has to involve and extend that period, or he can only intervene in that situation after 3 months. But under an act of parliament or through parliament, it can also specify the limit of preventive detection or the maximum period of preventive detention for a person. So under these two things, like under the public interest as well as the power of parliament, will limit the freedom for people who are detained, and their freedom will be restricted even if they are having protection through Article 22. And coming to the other freedom called, it is right against exploitation. See, Articles 23 and 24 will discuss about right against exploitation. Here, what do you mean by exploitation? So exploitation means misuse, or it might be a very illegal way of using people. So many such things. So Articles 23 and 24. So here these articles will uphold the dignity of individual and prohibits their exploitation. That means every person will have certain dignity, and that dignity will be protected, and prohibited their exploitation. That means if somebody is getting misused or if somebody is used illegally, then such cases will be protected through these articles. Let us see how Article 23 will protect against exploitation. So freedom from slavery, begging and other forms of forced labor. So you know that slavery is a very illegal thing. I know begging, forcing somebody to beg and get the money and other things. So they all come under exploitation. So labor exploitation. Also trafficking of human beings means like buying and selling of human beings is also protected. I mean is also prohibited, not protected. So under Article 23, people will be protected from getting exploited. Either they may be forced to do labor, or they may be forced to do begging, or they may be taken as slaves without any payment and all. They're like bonded labor. All such things will be prohibited, and Article 23 will protect them. And trafficking of human beings, like about the illegal selling and buying of human beings, and especially women and girl children, they will be sold and they will be purchased, and all these are all comes under trafficking of human being. Such things are prohibited under Article 23. It also prohibits the use of women, girls for immoral purposes. That means women will be kidnapped, will be trafficked, and they will be taken to prostitution and many such things. All such things come under immoral practices, and Article 23 will prohibit such kind of trafficking. And Article 24. So in the right against exploitation, how Article 24 will work? This article prohibits employment of children below the age of 14 years in factories, mines and other occupations. That means Article 24 will especially help the children. So children below the age of 14 years must not be kept in any labor work like factories, mines and other hazardous, means very dangerous places. And the practice of bonded labor with children is unlawful, and it is a crime. Hence Article 23 and 24, it will try to protect the citizens against exploitation. So now let us proceed with the another fundamental right called right to freedom of religion. So this right will guarantee certain freedoms to the aspect of religion in this country. So you all know that there are many religions in our country, like Hinduism, Islam, Jainism, Buddhism, many such religions. And there is no official religion as per our constitution. So the articles from 25 to 28 will discuss about the religious freedom in India, or the fundamental right called right to freedom of religion. So let us see how this fundamental right operates. All persons are entitled to the freedom of conscience and the right to freely profess, practice, and propagate. So, what do you mean by this? People will have their right of conscience. That means, see, every person knows what is wrong, what is right for him. So, this is related to behavior. So, everybody has right to choose what religion he can practice or what religion he does not like. So, that doesn't mean that he should hate other religions, but every person is entitled with freedom of conscience. That means what is wrong, what is good, he can think, and based on that he can follow a particular religion. He can also practice after knowing which is good or which is bad about the religion. He can practice that religion, and also he can propagate their religion. That means through the teachings of the religion he can also propagate it. And subject to public order, morality, and health, every religious denomination or section therefore shall have the right. So here, once a particular religion is practiced and propagated, then they will get some rights. What kind of rights they will get once they practice or propagate a religion? They can establish and maintain institutions for religious and charitable purposes. Any religious or any religion can have their own institutions. Christians who can have church, Hindus can have temple, Muslims can have their mosque. It is a religious institution, and also they can use these religious institutions for charitable purposes. Charitable means like collecting money and donating for poor, and many such things will be going in charity. And they also get the right to manage its own affairs in matter of religion. So every religion will get a right to manage itself. So no need for the governments to involve or somebody outsiders to come and involve. Every religion can have the right to manage itself. That means the people who are following that religion can manage their own religion. To own and acquire movable and immovable property, and to administer such property in accordance with law. See, these religious institutions may be acquiring certain properties in the name of religion. So temple, you take some lands will be there under its control. Many such properties, movable, immovable, means there are some fixed properties like all the money collected through hundis and all, they'll be kept in banks, and some constructions will be going on, and all such things can also be done. But that acquirement should be in accordance with law. You cannot illegally acquire certain properties and keep with the religious institutions. And no person shall be compelled to pay taxes for the promotion of a religion. So if anybody wants to promote their religion, they can happily promote, but the governments cannot ask him to pay tax. So it is his religious freedom. And no religious instruction shall be provided in any institution maintained by state funds. That means if government is running any institutions like schools, colleges and any such things, and you cannot have a particular religion to be instructed in such institutions which was run by governments. Even though if the persons wants to introduce certain religious instruction, they cannot compel, they cannot force anybody to compulsory follow that instruction of religion. So you might be knowing, there will be some missionary schools, many such things where, so for example, you take Christian missionary schools and all, where they'll be run by funds of donations and other things. Aided schools we call, they get money from government. They can instruct some religious matters there, but they cannot force everyone to follow it. They can have certain religious instruction here means they can allow some certain prayers and everything there, but they cannot force somebody who doesn't like it. They may, anybody can go to such kind of institute run by government, but that institution cannot force somebody to follow that. And so no person attending such institution shall be compelled to receive that instruction without the consent of himself, and if he is a child, then without the consent of the guardian, because children they don't know about these religious instructions and all. in case of children, without the permission of the guardian of the child, you cannot impose any religious instruction on child in such religious instructions in the institutions run by state governments or central government. Coming to the next fundamental right called cultural and educational rights. See, these cultural and educational rights under Article 29 and 30 is generally useful for the minority populations in our country. So, these Articles 29 and 30 or the cultural and educational rights will enable anybody in this country to protect their culture and having their educational rights. So, let us see how these articles will protect the minorities. So, who are minorities generally? So, if you take majority population, they may belong, they may have their culture, and because when majority population there in the country belonging to a set of group, then definitely their cultural and educational rights will be very much popular and they will be protected by the majority group. Then what about the case of minorities here who are less in population? So there the constitution will come into their protection through these cultural and educational rights. Article 29 gives a section of people or whole of them the right to preserve their language, script and culture. So we have certain groups of minorities people where their population is very less, and because of the majority, these minority people should not lose their language, script and culture. And in the matter of admission to any educational institutions maintained by the state, and admission cannot be denied on the grounds of religion, color, caste, creed or sex. So here how the minorities are protected through Article 29 and 30. So minorities, as we have discussed, they are people which are less in number, so in population. For example, you take in India, all Hindus are majority in population. If you compare Muslims and Christians, Buddhists, Sikh people, so they are very less in population. That doesn't mean that their rights cannot be protected. So their rights are also protected. How their rights are protected? By allowing them to preserve their language. You take Buddhist, so you take Muslims, they have their own Arabic script, and you take other minority groups, they have the right to protect their language, script, that means their holy scripts and their culture, and they cannot be denied admission into any educational institution based on the religion or based on the caste or based on the creed or many such things. So you cannot deny these minority groups from entering into any kind of religious or any kind of educational institutions based on the religion they follow, based on the caste they belong. You cannot deny. So everybody is allowed into educational institutions for learning or for education, and these minority groups are also allowed to have their institutions. So Article 30 will give all the minorities to establish and administer their educational institutions of their choice. The state is also prohibited from discriminating against educational institutions in the matter of grants. For example, you take how this Article 30 works. It gives all the minorities to establish and administer educational institutions. For example, you take Muslims, they have their Urdu schools, and you take Christians, they have their missionary schools. See, they can start their own educational institutions of their choice, and the state cannot intervene in such educational institutions in the matter of grants. So these minorities, like Christian missionary school, they may be getting some funds from foreign countries, many areas, and the governments cannot stop them from taking such funds. And if it is, and moreover, these institutions should also follow the law and collect funds for running those educational institutions. These minority groups who are belonging to India, they can start their own educational institutions, as well as they can allow grants. They can take funds as per the law, and the governments cannot also intervene in such aspects of the religious institutions. So if it is by law, the government is no way to interpret and or discriminate them. So this is about Article 29 and 30, which will guarantee cultural and educational rights to the minority population in India. So, one fundamental right that protects minority groups in the country is cultural and educational right. So, this is especially for the minority population.